Oh
But
man.
we got but enough of
We gotta
Jordan.
hold it. Yeah, enough of Jordan. I do want to talk about another connection Bill has though, and that's a connection that he got with Lawrence Taylor, right? So turns out, and we all know, if you know your history, you young bucks probably don't. Like anybody born after the 2010s probably don't know this about Bill. So back in the 80s, before Bill headed up the Patriots, Bill was a linebackers coach and defensive coordinator for the New York Giants. And it can be said that the North Carolina Tar Heels could be the key and the connector to Bill Belichick's success. Why? Because in 1980, the North Carolina Tar Heels had a guy heading up their defense, leading their defense, by the name, the original LT of Lawrence Taylor,
Man was a
considered by
monster.
considered by many to be the greatest football player of all time. And you know what? When you go see the tape and you go see how the man moved, I can see the argument. I've never been against anybody who said LT's the greatest football player of all, or at least the greatest defensive player of all time.
I feel like LT is the reason why drug testing was introduced.
I mean, we know about the penicillin milkshakes. Yes, yes,
Sure, yeah.
he
Yeah.
is definitely the reason. But the thing about it was, so the reason why I say about that 1980s defense, LT headlined that defense, and that's actually North Carolina's last ACC championship team. Because of how much of a monster he was, and because of Belichick's connection to UNC, because his dad worked there, he kept his eyes on North Carolina. He would watch the games and everything. And as a defensive coordinator and the linebacker coach, he pushed and urged the Giants to draft LT. How successful was it? I mean, they went on to win 2 Super Bowls. So, I, and the man was a
And LT's a Hall
defensive
of Famer.
monster, and LT's a Hall of Famer. So you can't
LT's
sit
a Hall
there
of
and be
Famer.
against it. Like, so when you
Because
think
we got
about it,
to hear a lot. Belichick breeds Hall of Famers.
he breeds Hall of
He knows how
Famers.
to.
So I got to ask you this question: if Belichick doesn't draft LT, like let's say he wasn't watching UNC football that year, or he says we should pass on him, I don't know about him. Do you think that sets the stone for success of how he builds defenses and he's as successful as a coordinator and then eventually a head coach?
I don't think that changes his. I don't think that'll change his trajectory much. I think what happened was he would have been upset with the Giants front office for missing out on what has now we now all see as a generational talent, as the epitome of what a generational talent could possibly be. And it would have, I think it would have been able, I think it would have pushed him even harder to one, get out of New York to go to another situation that's going to provide him a better outlet in which to build teams that he knows he wants to build. He'll probably have ended up in Buffalo quicker
Mm-hmm.
if this was before he was in Buffalo. That's if I think this might have been after he was in Buffalo. I think one of the two. I know he was then up in Buffalo with Bill Parcells before he ended up in Boston with the
I'll
with the
say
New
because
England
I
Patriots.
know he was in Cleveland for a bit too.
Because I think he was in Cleveland to start his career, and then he ended up in Buffalo with Bill Parcells for those two couple of Super Bowl runs that they had. Those several Super Bowl runs that they had to fall short. Yeah, no, he was with New York first. I think he was with Cleveland, then New York, then Buffalo, and then New England.
So,
Because
so
you're
here's
right,
how it
he
went
ended
down.
up getting a coaching job at New England after he left Buffalo. If I remember right,
Let's
I may be wrong.
let's see. Do 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 do. So everybody says. So so he started in New York.
Okay,
Let's see. So after graduating, he had an assistant. He was assistant to Baltimore Colts head coach in '75. Joined the Detroit Lions as an assistant special teams coach before becoming also the tight end and wide receivers coach in '77. Then he was dismissed. He was dismissed in '78 And then in '78, he was assistant special teams coach and defensive assistant for the Denver Broncos. Then in '79 was when he was a defensive assistant and special teams coach. He became linebacker coach in the '80s and was named the defensive coordinator under Bill Parcells in '85. So you got the right colors, just the wrong team. It was New York that he was with Parcells.
He was with Bill Parcells in New York. Yeah, he was at Buffalo, right?
No, the Giants.
Because I know Parcells was in Buffalo too.
I'm not saying Parcells wasn't in Buffalo, but I'm saying right here,
Hmm.
Parcells was the head coach for the Giants.
Which I'm not arguing.
Yeah, he was head coach for the Giants and whatnot.
Yeah, I was saying I
And
might have got the colors. I might have got him confused because of the colors. But I thought he was in Buffalo too. But I think that was just Bill Parcells in Buffalo.
yeah,
Because I know Parcells was the head coach for Buffalo those couple of years that they got to the Super Bowl and ended up losing like 3 years straight.
actually, hold up. From what I'm seeing, Parcells never coached Buffalo. He coached New England. He coached the Giants and New England, the Jets and Dallas, but he never coached Buffalo.
Who am I getting him confused with?
I, because you're talking about the coach for Buffalo during their Super Bowl runs, right?
Yeah,
Hold up.
Bills coach during Super Bowls. Mark Levy. That didn't even seem right.
Let's see. Hey, it just doesn't. Marv Levy. He's like, it just doesn't seem right.
That doesn't seem right. Because for some like
Like I said, the colors are the same. I can see how you got to construe, but
now I feel like I'm in some kind of alternate timeline because I remember seeing NFL films that had Bill Parcells in a Buffalo's thing showing them missed up field goals. One showing them missed that field goal, and
I
Bill Parcells talking about them coming up short in the Super Bowl 3 years straight. And I don't know. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know. I may have fell out of the timeline. So I don't know what's happening.
you may
Either
have.
way,
I think you fell out of the timeline, my boy.
I
And I
feel like
think
I
I
fell
I
out of
genuinely
something.
think you might be getting the fact that he was with the Giants and the Patriots because didn't the Patriots go to a Super Bowl in the '90s and lose? They lost to Brett Favre, right?
Rex Ryan is who I'm thinking of. No, not Rex. That was before that. It's before that. Way before that. And I might be thinking I might be getting them confused with the Patriots. That's also possible because they also had the same damn color scheme back then.
So let's see. Hold up, because the Patriots lost to the Packers in the '96 season that ends in '97, and I want to say that was the last year that. Yep. So the Patriots lost that Super Bowl to the Packers, and that was the year Parcells took them to the Super Bowl. So I think you're thinking of them playing the Packers and losing. I think you might be
And
thinking of
maybe
that.
and that
I think
might
that's
and
what you
that
might.
might be it. Because like I said, I knew I saw him in those colors. Him and Bill Belichick were on the same sideline, losing a Super Bowl together. I remember seeing it. I know I saw it. I know I wasn't
Right.
crazy, but I was like I said, I got the teams
So I'll
mixed up.
say
So
this.
I'm
So I'll
gonna
say
go
this.
ahead.
So either they lost the Super Bowl. So if you saw them together, it was when they were with the Giants. If you saw Parcells by himself, it was when he was in New England. I'll say that. That's what it is. Because I don't know how many Super Bowls they went to together, but because they won two.
I don't know. Either way, like I said, I got it. As we figured it out, I got that wrong. I just knew. I knew. So I was like, I knew. I was like, I knew I either got confused with something or I fell out of a timeline because I knew I saw something. My eyes
that
did
man's
not
like,
deceive.
I'm. That man's like, I'm not crazy.
It was
I
an
swear.
NFL film. I knew what it was. I knew what I saw.
That man, that man swear up and down. But yeah, honestly, in my mind, I think that might have changed Bill Belichick's projection a lot.
Like, I don't think it would change
I
his projection a whole lot. The reason what probably would have happened was he probably wouldn't got that head coaching job as quick.
I I
Yeah,
think it would have changed. I think it would have changed it a lot because you don't get a talent like Lawrence Lawrence Taylor, then he goes somewhere else, and who knows how Lawrence Taylor is utilized, right?
right,
That builds a whole different defense. Now he's got a scheme for that. Now he's got to build something completely different. Now that might not work, or it may work. It may or may not work. Bill's a great mind. I'm not taking that away from him, but I think
right.
not getting LT has a drastic ripple effect and potentially takes away some of his Super Bowls. Now, I will say this because of how great Bill is, I'm not going to say he never wins a Super Bowl because that's honestly, that's just a dumb statement,
Right.
I think.
And
But
I
I
can
don't
agree
think
with
he
you.
amasses 6 Super Bowls, most Super Bowls of all time, along with 2 Super Bowls as a defensive coordinator. So he has 8. I don't think he amasses that.
Like, I don't like I say I can agree that I don't think it would have he would have built defenses the same way. I think his intelligence and ability to spot talent still would have brought him to where he is now. I just think it would have took him longer to do it.
Fair. And then,
I think he would have made one more stop before getting to Boston after New York instead of going from New York to Boston. I think he
mm,
would have probably ended up at another team who would listen to his input a little bit more, and then it
gotcha,
would have worked from there. And now he may not have gone to Boston. He may not have gone to New England at all. But I still think he would probably end up being as good of a coach as he is now.
true.